Thank you for joining us today. I call the February 16th meeting of the Human Rights Commission to order. Let's begin with an introduction of commission members. Start with Sarah.
Sarah Boone Stapple.
Nancy Boyle.
Cheryl Schaefer.
Barry Nelson.
Cody Severson, Chair.
Carolyn B. Kraft.
Jacqueline Dodson-Rudd.
Saku Sirleaf.
Thank you, folks. The next item is to approve the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, adding an extra item to discuss the forming of a committee or task force?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is to approve the minutes of the January 23rd, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, folks. And next up, we will go into a presentation by Kristen Nelson of Project Ray. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Kristen Nelson. Thank you so much for having me today. Like I said, my name is Kristen Nelson. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Fargo with my husband, Nick, my 10-year-old daughter, Alex, and 2 dogs. I am the founder of an organization, like I said, called Project Ray. We work, it stands for Rainbows Are Inclusive. We work with children ages 3 to 14 who are gender queer, gender questioning. We also work with their grown-ups in their lives to bring resources, community, and support. We were founded in 2020 as a community change initiative of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber Leadership Program. I am an early childhood educator, and I was inspired to create a program that would educate teachers and adults on how to support children to be their most authentic selves. When we then morphed into the organization that we are today, and then we support kids and educate their grown-ups. Project Ray events, we host events that our children and their families can come to. We have hosted at the Pride and Joy Equine Rescue in North Fargo, and we worked till our kids learned about the organization, to learn about how horses heal trauma, and they help with chores. They volunteered twice now. It's been a very fulfilling partnership. We host events at St. Mark's Lutheran Church. The youth were able to participate in some art projects, self-care projects, and the adults were able to have deep discussions about supporting their queer youth and meet other people who are also caring for queer youth. Bright Futures Childcare and Preschool hosted an event where the youth were made sensory bottles, and Rebel Marie spoke to our group of adults, and that was a very fulfilling and informative conversation. And we've also hosted advocacy events recently, as recent as January, a couple in February, to rally people to take stands against the anti-queer legislation that is going through session now. We also work with schools and stakeholders. For public schools, mainly Fargo Public, we've provided brochures to the school counselors and an option for community building. We have gotten several names of families who would like more information on how to use our services. Counseling and therapy centers, our information is provided if someone is just looking for community and support. And then community organizations we partner with to spread the word about what Project Ray does, just as another resource if anybody is looking for it. So basically, we are looking at the 2023 legislative session right now. We have seen 21 anti-LGBTQ bills. Many are based on bills that have been put forward nationally. These bills are not based in research, data, or statistics. They are based on sensationalism to engage fear and moral panic. Moral panics arise when a distorted mass media campaigns create fear and reinforce previously held or stereotyped beliefs. frequently centered around ethnicity, religion, and social class. Often, moral panics occur swiftly, focusing attention on behaviors and then fluctuating concerns over time. The problematic aspect of the moral panic is that hysteria often results in the need to do something about the issue, and most commonly results in the passing of legislation that is highly punitive, unnecessary, and serves to justify the agendas of those positioned in power of authority. What will happen if teachers are allowed to affirm a child's pronouns? Will children be confused into thinking that they're queer if their queer teachers are talking about their family? Are librarians planting inappropriate books in schools so children find them and question their own identity? Of course, these answers are no. But legislators in this state are working hard to spread the inaccurate messages about queer people. Messages that then will use to legislate against our queer neighbors, friends, business owners, family members, and kids. I will outline for you the hurt that these bills will do to children of the state if they are allowed to go forward, and urge this committee to make a statement in opposition to these bills and one of support for the citizens in North Dakota to live their lives as they see fit without government intervention. One supportive adult in a queer child's life will decrease the risk of suicide by 40%. This is an actual fact, an actual data point that we know and we can reference. When talking about anti-queer legislation in relation to children in public schools, this question has the biggest implications. Who will a student turn to if they have no support system at home? Let's say legislation passes, making it illegal for teachers, to use a student's preferred pronouns, or illegal for a teacher to ask a student how they're feeling. What is it that a child will do if there's nowhere else to turn to? The data from the LGBTQ school climate survey indicates that children who have no support systems skip school, engage in maladaptive or dangerous behaviors, and are at risk for self-harm and suicide. Imagine being forced to stay shut in inside yourself. Your thoughts are dark, and you cannot trust the adults in your life to help you. What solutions might you turn to? I refuse to mince words here. These bills will kill our kids and push them out of the state and teachers out of the profession. Students don't learn if they don't feel safe. Is it ethical to legislate against specific communities of people? Some disregard this as an ethical dilemma. They're saying that they're working to protect the mental health and safety of children from becoming confused by some agenda. LGBTQ inclusive policies and practices not only benefit queer students, but also the students that they work with, or all the students that they are in school with. Researchers have found that safety is enhanced for LGBTQ youth when enumerated anti-bullying policies are in place. Support staff, gay straight alliances, and LGBTQ representation in curriculum further enhance safety. Students cannot learn if they do not feel safe in their school. School victimization has an adverse impact on the academic achievement and well-being of LGBTQ youth. Caring teachers, supportive environments, positive and friendly classmates all contribute to a student's feeling of well-being and belonging in school. Anti-LGBTQ legislation is designed to do the opposite of this. Politicians use rhetoric to scare the public into thinking policies are necessary to keep kids safe. It will be up to parents, teachers, and advocates to fight against the false narratives in order to keep queer children safe in school. This one's a little small, so hope you can read it. The data. The reality of queer children is different than the one lawmakers want you to think. These data sets were pulled from the 2021 LGBTQ Youth Risk Survey and put together for us by Faye Sidler, who is a suicide prevention advocate. These data points show that youth are being bullied, attacked, and have no support system, and overall feel unsafe in their school. Kids spend most of their young lives in school, so it needs to be a place for all students to feel welcome and represented for who they are. These lawmakers in the state are working to make schools a space where queer people cannot exist in. These kids will never be allowed to live their authentic lives to reach their greatest potential and will have to hide their true selves in a space where they spend the majority of their time. What an incredible burden to place on our kids. This next part is just thinking about the danger of what a single story can do to the narrative of a larger population. So what can be done about the single story narrative in North Dakota? The Danger of a Single Story was written by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie in 2009 to illustrate the danger of one perspective, how one perspective can have on one's worldview. Adichie talks about how she grew up on a university campus in Nigeria, reading English, American children's books, drawing pictures of children with blue eyes and who ate apples and played in the snow. She had never done any of these things, yet with the resources she had, she thought that this was normal. She had not seen characters that looked like her in the books that she read. So then once she went to school in America, she realized that these people do exist. So she started writing about the things that she recognized. Autumn Dodge and Paul Crutcher discussed the importance of visibility of LGBTQ characters, in stories and themes and curriculum to support the disruption of a single story. Single stories silence or diminish the experiences of many marginalized groups and prevent opportunities for building empathy and understanding amongst all students. Teachers are incredible influence on the children that they see each day. Authors argue that single stories diminish the experiences of many marginalized groups and prevent opportunities for building empathy and understanding among all students. In summary, the research overwhelmingly supports specific inclusive policies and practices which contribute to a more positive school climate. The research shows that LGBTQ children report better support, mental health, and feel safer when their schools impose LGBTQ inclusive practices and policies. Suicidality is reduced and feeling of belonging increase when the school creates a safe environment for queer children to exist in. Our queer youth, by the data, are not safe. They experience abuse in homes and school. They have little access to help, struggle with hopelessness, homelessness, and suicidality. All the credible data we have points in one direction. Affirming these youth, giving them support, and allowing them to explore their identity is what makes these kids happy and healthy. We need to speak up and speak out to advocate for the rights of our queer kids. Those that can must speak out for those that can't. Queer kids and many queer adults feel unsafe to speak out in public because their safety will be impacted. Committees, boards, media outlets, and anyone with an elevated voice must use their voice to tell all lawmakers that citizens of North Dakota will not allow for outright discrimination of queer people. The fact that inclusive efforts were associated with less bullying for all students, regardless of sexual orientation, should strengthen administrators' reasoning for implementing them, regardless of larger community attitudes about sexual orientation or gender identity. More supportive climates benefit all students. Again, there is a ton of research showing this. Protecting and empowering queer youth in schools does require an all-school effort. The school needs to follow supportive best practices in order to build an inclusive and positive climate. Research of anti-LGBTQ legislation and work to silence teacher support of queer students shows that all students succeed when the school have radical inclusion. Positive school climates decrease the likelihood of suicidality, and evidence is much stronger for suicidal thoughts, so it reduces the likelihood of suicidal thoughts. LGBTQ youth depend on supportive adults to see them, when they are down, to reach out when they might be slipping in school, and to recognize when their life might be in danger. Queer students are still kids, and even though the adults in their lives might not understand what they're experiencing, they need to know that they will always have someone to turn to when they need. We need help spreading this message. Please use the message on the larger city please message the larger city commission to make a statement on behalf of queer people in Fargo. Let the commission know how important it is to protect the rights of all citizens in the state so everyone can have access to Governor Burgum's good life. Any questions?
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions or comments from the commission?
I just want to thank you for coming and sharing what your work with us. It's incredibly important work, and I'm really grateful that you're here and that you're doing it and that you're reminding us all how important and vital this is. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I was going to say the same thing, and thank you for all the data that you presented, because
you.
it's very important.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation. Most of these laws that have been passed with regards to LGBT, they are mostly based on biblical thoughts. And I'm a preacher. I've been a preacher all my life. I believe in the Bible. I believe in the Word of God. But I do not believe that Christianity should be legislated. God never intended Christianity to be a thing of legislation.
Right.
Never. God is God. He has all power. If he wanted the whole world to be Christians, he would have made the whole world Christian.
Right.
But he gave us something called will. We have a volition to choose. And we cannot rule out choice. Democracy is built on choice. It's freedom of people's will. So to go into the legislature and now try to pass laws that take away people's freedom of choice, I think it is counterproductive.
Yes.
Because I want to be on record today as the first clergy in this body, in this state, in this country, and in the world, to say nobody is more pro-choice than God himself. And I know that will raise a lot of eyebrows. That a clergy said God is pro-choice. Yes, he is pro-choice. Because John 3:16 says,
Siku? Sorry, thank you. Barry's going to be doing some updates as well on legislative session. So I wanted to circle those into that update if we can.
okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I would like us to consider Ms. Nelson's request that we make a recommendation to the City Commission to make a statement. And we can consider that now or after Barry's, whatever you think is most appropriate.
I'd like to carry that conversation to number 9,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
And I would just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to be here today and giving us this presentation. The information is so important to get out. And I would like to stress to you that it may look like we don't have a very large crowd here, but it is being televised on public access TV. So there will be more people who will see the message
Wonderful.
than it seems like there is right now.
Yes, wonderful. And if anybody has any questions about what we do at Project Ray, we have a Facebook. It's Project Ray FM. We also have a website. It's projectray.org. So please message us. We would love questions, answers, involvement, advocacy. I kind of run it all as the one lady show. So
Thank you, Kristen.
thank you.
Okay, if we can move into number 5 and go into Rin Wingel's presentation, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rin Wilgos. I'm a 51-year-old transgender woman. I am legally recognized in the state of North Dakota as a female. Did everybody get this sheet?
Yes.
Okay. This is, in my opinion, most of these bills are broken down to 4 different things. Lack of knowledge, compromising safety, lack of representation, and therefore they're not even looking at potential financial impacts to the state. So I broke those down with follow-up thoughts as to why those are the basis behind these bills, because they're all discriminatory in my opinion. So I would like to cover knowledge first. There's a lot of lack of knowledge when it comes to somebody that's transgender or has gender incongruency. The first being that being transgender is not a mental illness. They have done away with that in 2013 in the DSM. It's not even classified as a mental illness anymore. It's classified as a sexual development disorder. So they've taken it completely out of the mental health category. There's this huge thing that's a conspiracy. I'll get into that more in a minute. The conversion therapy, detransitioning, and Lupron. So detransitioning, there was a study done in 2015 or 2016 with 28,000 trans folks in the United States alone. 1 in 200 actually detransitioned, or 3 in 200 transitioned. 2 out of those 3 detransitioned because they could not go forward continuing their transition, either whether it was outside social influences, whether it was cruelty, whether it was loss of income, jobs, anything like that. Gender identity is not protected anywhere in the United States against discrimination, except in specific areas. Minnesota is one, California is another. There was a court decision, Bostock versus County, I think it was in Massachusetts, that just got overturned November 12, 2022, which prevented healthcare providers and other people from discriminating against people based on sexual orientation and gender identity. A federally appointed Trump judge actually overturned that verdict. And if it goes to the Supreme Court, I'm pretty confident that their decision will be upheld. There is discrimination in Fargo. It's actually not as bad as people would think it is. Unfortunately, medical discrimination still takes place in Fargo. Okay, Lupron is the drug that's used as puberty blocker. Puberty blockers have been around since the 1970s. They were initially developed and designed to suppress androgynous or indigenous hormones for cancer treatments. So they've been using Lupron for almost 50 years. So there's a lot of misinformation with that, and that's not being addressed that I can find anywhere, that these medications have been out. They got FDA approval. All the clinical studies were done on patients between the ages of 18 and 65. They did not do trials on children. So the statistics and a lot of the people that they gave these medications to do these studies and all these numbers that you're seeing are there because these patients were older and they also had pre-existing health conditions. Usually it was prostate cancer or ovarian cancer or breast cancer. So the stories are, the disinformation is horrible. I agree, there should be way more studies on transgender healthcare. But how are you going to find 1,000 or 10,000 transgender people to go through clinical trials to get FDA approval for medications? Another interesting thing that I found when I was researching some of the language of these bills is this is a study that was done in the 1990s by Judith Reisman. It's since been condemned, discredited. She wrote this study in the 90s and used the same talking points and narratives that you see on Fox News and Newsmax, calling us pedophiles and groomers. This study was based out of research done in 1930s Germany. They've rehashed it against bisexual and gay people. Now it's transgender. This is horrific reading, but it's the same narrative that they're using now. And it's the same narrative that the legislators are talking about when they're testifying for these bills. It's absolutely absurd and it's horrible. Okay, the next one is conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is currently banned in 23 countries around the world and 20 states in the United States and 110 municipalities across the United States. Oh, by the way, I do have, if anybody wants to take a look at this, I do have the Lupron clinical trial study, if anybody wants to take a look at this afterwards. Conversion therapy has been deemed torture by the United Nations and World Health Organizations. This study here is a listing, and there's over 200 sources, credible sources from around the world that deem this practice as torture. And that's a really good point that people don't realize. This has actually been found to be torture. It's not therapy. It's not helpful. I went through conversion therapy at 15. It took me 35 years to undo the damage that 6 months of conversion therapy did. Okay, now as far as outing and safety, I think the outing and safety kind of ties in with the representation, that a lot of these bills are trying to suppress gender identity from society. We've seen it happen over and over again. If you take people out of the ability to use public transportation, to get jobs, to use the correct restrooms, you push those people out of society and then they don't have representation. And unfortunately, the people who stand up for us to try and give us representation, now the narrative is that you're groomers and pedophiles as well. And that's their first go-to. If you stand up for us, then you are as bad as us, is how they word it and how they frame it. And it's disgusting. So with the outing and the safety thing, notifying parents, if parents don't know that their child is gender fluid or gender queer or gay, there's probably a good reason. And they're searching for allies at school. They're searching for somebody to help them navigate that journey. And if you force teachers to do this, it's, first of all, how are you gonna find compliance? Second of all, it's really disgusting that the state of North Dakota, when a majority of the voters probably live in Fargo, and the state legislator that's, they're taking away your rights and your privileges as educators and other state employees to follow best practices, to make your own decisions. They're taking away your freedom of speech as well. And that's a really profound thing. They're completely legislating away everybody's right to make their own decisions. Just the fact that these bills are out in the open and they're publicly being discussed now, it promotes the bad and negative stereotypes that aren't true. And unfortunately, a lot of the damage is already done, whether these bills pass or not. And it'll get worse, but a good majority of the damage is already done. And it's really sad, because people don't know a lot of trans people. And if they did, if they took the time to ask the questions, to get to know us, they would find out that what they've been seeing through their primary news source, or people that are discriminatory or bigoted anyway, are absolutely 100% wrong, because they don't know either. Okay, as far as the representation, lack of representation promotes a lack of knowledge, increases disinformation. A couple of these bills are trying to push us out of the public eye, which is really unfortunate, because what happens for Pride events this summer, I've already suggested to FM Pride that they should plan all their financial activities in Moorhead. If we're not even going to be allowed to have a parade or Pride in the Park, the one bill that scares me to death on a personal level is House Bill 1333. The way that that bill is worded, it doesn't, the state is trying to erase the transgender identity from the Century Code. They tried to, it didn't pass. But depending on who interprets House Bill 1333, if I'm out dancing with my boyfriend or in public dressed as appropriately for my gender, could I be arrested as a quote unquote female impersonator? That scares me to death. As a lot of other trans girls are feeling that too. And it's being talked about nationally in the media, that this is where we're at now. And it depends. I've talked to Gretchen, Ryan, and Josh. They've all agreed with me that yes, depending on the police officer that shows up for this call, absolutely. This could be interpreted that way depending on that officer. And that could set off a chain reaction of events that will not end well for any transgender person.
Rin, I apologize. I think that we can do about 2 more minutes.
Okay.
And we can always have you back at another time as well, but we about 2 more minutes, then we do need to go on. I'm sorry.
Okay, there was a couple things with everything that's been said. I do have all the sources here. If anybody has any questions and would like to take a deeper dive into it. I know that the city's response is probably not going to make a whole lot of difference on a state level, but there are 4 things that I wish the city would do going forward. There's a reporting form for hate crime reporting. It has everything on here except gender identity. I would ask them to add that to that form. I asked Andrea Knoll back in May. She told me it would happen. I haven't heard anything. Make a public statement regarding some of the enforcement of these bills, especially House Bill 1333. If the police come out and say, yeah, this is what it says, but this is going to be our enforcement policy, I think that would put a lot of people's minds at ease because, like I said, I don't think it's going to change anything, but the city could at least come out with a statement and say this is their plan on enforcement. Make all public city spaces, post on your website the accommodations rules. I know the Fargo Parks Department, I can use the female bathrooms, but I had to call and out myself to get that information, and that's not fair. And then the last thing is bias training for the police department for hate crime reporting. I looked up the statistics. I think there's been 1 hate crime reported based on sexual orientation or gender identity. So I'm wondering if maybe the police department should look into some bias hate crime reporting training. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rin. Okay, and so right now I think we just want to jump into number 6, updates on the website via Catlin Christie.
Alrighty, hello commissioners, good to see you all again. I'm Catlin, I'm an assistant planner with the planning department, and I'm also here with Becky Majerus, who is the city's facilities director, as well as our ADA coordinator. So we just wanted to give you a quick update. We just have begun the process for updating the city's discrimination complaint form and our grievance procedure, and I think we'll continue that over the next couple months and certainly be seeking the HRC's input on that process. For starters, we have already decided that we're going to designate DEI staff to be sort of that central point person or clearinghouse for the complaint process. Up until this point, it's been someone from either facilities and or from the planning department, but we think that this will make a lot of sense as a DEI person. And other than that, we don't have any other updates for right now, but like I said, we'll be continuing to edit the complaint process as well as the form, and so there'll be opportunities for any of your input that we'll come to you with. Any questions up until now?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, do you have any historical data as a result from those forms being submitted?
Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I can speak to that. I did ask for the last 4 years of history on how many forms were submitted. In 2019, there were 3. In 2020, there were 6. In 2021, there were 4. And then in 2022, there were 3. I began with the city at the beginning of 2022. And outside of that form, I received one other email directly to me regarding ADA accommodations. So I would say that, there probably are a few in prior years that came outside of that form submission, but those were the numbers from the form specifically.
Can you tell us anything more about what was done with those complaints?
All of the complaints are reviewed and investigated. I can tell you that a lot of the inquiries and complaints that came in were not specifically ADA related, which I think is one reason that we are moving the point of contact to DEI. We received a lot of, wages complaints or discrimination from landlords, that type of inquiry, which do not fall under the ADA. We always try to direct them to the appropriate person or the appropriate organization.
Sure. In working through this process, are you working with organizations that work specifically with the community with disabilities? I think of Freedom Resource and others who do advocacy work on behalf of those individuals.
Yes, one of my employees works directly with Freedom Resource. When we do have ADA-specific issues that come up, we do reach out to them to make sure that we are interpreting the ADA appropriately.
And I think as we do migrate it into DEI as the central clearinghouse, we'll just really drill into that network of partners and the flow of where a complaint should land.
Does the Human Rights Commission have access to the resolutions on those cases that were handled?
Yeah, I certainly think that could be a part of the process as we design it, if that's something that you want. If it's appropriate, the point person might seek HRC's input, just as they might seek input from other partners like the city attorney or other departments or private entities that are involved.
And I think currently, with the preliminary discussions that we've been having, we're gonna try to work this more into the working sessions that we have. And I think the flow at this point might be that it goes through Ahmed and Dr. Hogan, then comes to us during a working session, at which time we triage from there, is what we're talking about right now, I think. Any other questions, Sarah? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, then if we could go into presentation from number 7, Assistant City Attorney Ian McLean. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Ian McLean. I'm an assistant city attorney with the city of Fargo, and in that role, I also help manage the prosecutor's office. So I was asked to come here today and sort of explain the difference between the city ordinance on harassment compared to the state ordinance on harassment. So before we get into that, I just want to talk about what are the 2 essential elements you need for any crime that would include harassment. First one, the fancy word they use is an actus reus. So all that means is you actually have to do something. So if I'm sitting at home on my couch and I'm thinking, boy, I'd like to go assault person A tonight, without actually getting off my couch and going and doing it, I haven't committed a crime. Just thinking about it is not enough. A guilty mind's not enough. Second one is, if I'm downtown and I turn around and I elbow somebody in the face, now I've done an act that could constitute assault, but did I intend to do it? So I have to have a guilty mind. So was it an accident when I turned around, or did I look the person in the eye and smack them in the face? So you have to have a guilty mind and you have to do something. Those are the 2 essential elements for almost any crime. So the city harassment ordinance is 100322. So if you read subsection A, it's a person is guilty of the offense if, with the intent to frighten or harass another. Then we go into 1, 2, 3. So with the intent to frighten, harass another, that's the intent I was talking about, the guilty mind. You have to intend to frighten, harass another. And then 1, 2, and 3 are the 3 acts that would constitute harassment under the city ordinance. And all of these would also constitute harassment under the state ordinance, which I will get into. So the first one is to make a telephone call anonymously or in offensively coarse language. The second one, and this is where most harassment claims come from, is make repeated telephone calls or other electronic communication, such as text messages or emails, whether or not the communication ensues, with no purpose of legitimate communication. And then number 3 is communicate a falsehood in writing or electronic communication that causes mental anguish. So 3 difficulties you have with proving harassment. 2 are specific to every single crime. 1 is specific to this one. So the first one is we have to prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a very high burden. Number 2 is we have to show an intent. It has to be some sort of mens rea. So that's with every crime. And the third one is most of our harassment claims do come under subsection number 2, and it's usually between people that know one another. So there's no purpose of legitimate communication, because usually what the defendant says is, oh, I was texting her, I was emailing her or him about this or about the kids or about I want to get back with them. They try to come up with some sort of legitimate purpose. So that's usually the primary defense we see to harassment in the city of Fargo. So before I jump into the state statute and point out the one difference, we also have hate crime harassment in Fargo. It's the exact same, except for there's one final element, which is commits an offensive violation under A1, 2, and 3. Those are the 3 acts we just talked about, in whole or in part because of the actual or perceived race, color, religion, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, or ancestry of a victim. So you have to have everything you have for harassment, plus you have this extra element that we have to prove at the city of Fargo. And I should talk about, so in the city of Fargo, we are only allowed to deal with Class B misdemeanors. So what that means is the maximum sentence in any city court is 30 days in jail, $1,500 fine, or both. At the state level, you have Class A misdemeanors, which is up to a year in prison, and you have different levels of felonies. So here's the state ordinance on harassment. So you recognize number 1, a person's guilty offensive with the intent to frighten or harass another, that person, same mens rea. The only difference is they have this subsection A, which is communicates in writing or electronic communication a threat to inflict injury on any person, to the person's reputation, or to the property. So if I send a text message to someone saying, I'm going to beat you up, or I'm going to spread this rumor about you, or I'm going to go damage your house, the reason we don't have that in the city ordinance is this is a Class A misdemeanor. So we're not allowed to have a Class A misdemeanor. We could, in theory, put this in our city ordinance and just have it be a Class B misdemeanor. But so if the police get something that fits under subsection A, they're going to send that to the state, because that'd be a Class A misdemeanor. We wouldn't have jurisdiction. Finally, we also have a disorderly ordinance. So a lot of times it's difficult to prove this harassment in the city of Fargo because we have to show the no purpose of legitimate communication. It's very specific. There is sort of a catch-all in our disorderly conduct, and there's 2 things we like about it. One is the mens rea is a little bit different. So as a person's guilty of disorderly conduct if with the intent to harass or alarm another person or in reckless disregard. So it's a little bit less than intent. Maybe I didn't mean to frighten or harass them, but I should have known it was going to frighten or harass them. And then subsection 9 is engages in harassing conduct by means of intrusive or unwanted acts, words, or gestures. So it's more of a catch-all. So if we feel like someone probably has done a harassment, but we're not sure we can fit it under 100322, we usually will charge it out as disorderly conduct. The penalty would typically be the same. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair?
Sure, yes.
I guess I am curious to learn more about how, when when a report is made to the police, how is it decided whether or not it's going to go to the city attorney's office or the state's attorney's office?
And I can't answer that question specifically because I wouldn't be involved in that role yet. My guess when it comes to harassment specifically, if it's going to fit under the city ordinance, I would guess they all go to the city for the most part. If it's going to fit under this subsection A, which is at the state level, the Class A misdemeanor, it's probably going to the state. But I don't know that for a fact, for sure.
I guess who is making that decision? Like, is it the police officer? Is there someone in the city who makes that decision? And
it'd be somebody in the police department that would send it. Now, it may get sent to the state, and the state may say this is more appropriate for the city. So it's by the time the city sees it, either the police department made the decision to send it to the city, or they send it to the state, and the state said this should go to the city. And a lot of times the state will send us Class B misdemeanors. So it is possible that the state could get something for harassment and say, well, this would also fit under the city ordinance. We have so many cases we're dealing with, and a Class B misdemeanor just doesn't always register on their radar as much as it does at the city of Fargo, because they're dealing with AA felonies, and all sorts of murder and things like that. So we may be the ones who just end up with most of the Class B misdemeanors, whether it's harassment or any other type of Class B misdemeanor.
A question just really for the Office of DEI. I found the slides very interesting, and I would really like to have copies of the slides if possible.
And I will email them to Ahmed. I'm sure he can send it out to the entire.
Thank you so
afternoon.
much.
Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we'll go into number 8, committee updates. During the last month, we did form 3 subcommittees of the commission, and I asked them to have one person as chair, so I just want to open up to whoever that is for each committee to give an update. So first committee, committee 1?
That's
Go.
Committee B.
Okay.
Committee B. Unfortunately, we have had trouble getting our schedules together to be able to meet. And we definitely hope to do that between, are we going to have a working session this month?
Yes, well, March 1st at 2:30 PM is when it'll.
Okay, right. Between then and now.
Okay,
So unfortunately, we have nothing to report at this time.
okay. Committee C? Who's heading that way? No update? Okay. Committee D? Okay, no committee updates at this point in time. We'll come back at the next meeting for that.
Can I make a quick request?
Sure.
Can we have a list of our assignments sent to us so we can be reminded of who we need to harass to be chair?
I'll work with Ahmed on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll spend a little bit right now in number 9, getting an update from Barry on the legislative session.
Great, thank you, Chairman. And this couldn't have been better time. Thank you, Kristen and Rin, for laying the groundwork. You saved all my words. So I think that I will just defer to the kinds of great introductions they made to this resolution, which is before us today, which is the stance of the Fargo Human Rights Commission in respect to the deluge of bills targeting LGB and particularly transgender community in the state. I am not going to read through these. I will give a quick update in the sense that there are typically, we have in the past, we would target a specific bill as it came up and either supported or opposed, very specifically to that bill. But as Kristen said, when you've got 21 bills dedicated to a specific group of individuals within our state, it's very difficult to do that. But I'm going to present for you. I'm glad, Ahmed, that you sent this out to members. I hope everybody's had a chance to read this. In terms of summary, my only thing in terms of thinking about it and listening to, again, Kristen and Rin speak this today is, whenever one looks at these things, you try to be reasonable and measured. And I'm thinking that reason and measurement have been thrown out the window by our legislature when they're dealing with this group of individuals in our state. So if anything, I'm thinking about, is this resolution too measured and reasonable? We have a very, very dangerous legislation that are being passed by the legislature. And I don't think we can afford to be approaching it with a reasonable rationale because it's not being listened to. Just the update would be that Senate Bill 2260, Senate Bill 2231. 2231 basically has to do with purposely misgendering young people in the schools. 2260 is one of the many parental rights bills that are before the legislature, which really ultimately targets our LGBT students in the school system. They both passed the Senate already. So that is something that we are approaching crossover in the legislative session that begins February 25th, which means all bills that started in the House will be, if they pass the House, they will be turned over to the Senate for consideration again, and likewise, Senate will be passed over to the House. So it's possible that a bill that passes one House may fail in the other one. However, those of us who are really watching the legislative action and watching these bills are very, very concerned that they, in fact, all could pass through both houses and go to the governor for signature. And just looking at 2231 and 2260, our great result in 2021 was the governor did veto the anti-trans athlete bill, and the Senate was unable to override the veto, so it did not go into law. Looking at how 2231, 2260 passed, they passed with a veto-proof margin. So we're very concerned about how the kinds of things that this could happen going through. So I strongly recommend that we, as a body, I think there's two things we really need to do. We need to stand in solidarity against all of these bills. There is nothing of merit in any one of these bills. They are targeting, as we've already heard, they are targeting freedoms, and they are harming our kids. They're very purposeful. I'm a social worker by training. If I saw a classic definition of child abuse, this is it, where people in power intentionally harm children under their jurisdiction. I don't think it can be stated too strongly. So I put this before the commission. I would suggest in my motion that we consider this, and we can discuss it if people want to change some language in this. I'm very open to it. I would then, in light of what was heard today, I would then, once passed, I would look for opportunities and recommend that we bring this before committees when they are heard in the legislature, so that our opposition to these bills are clearly communicated directly to the lawmakers that are making these decisions, which will happen between the end of early March 1st and the end of April. And then I would add to this, given the recommendation or request from RIN, that we also include in this motion that we would pass this up to the Fargo City Commission, ask that they also make a definitive statement in opposition to these bills.
With that, one thing I would just like to ask from this commission is does anybody have language in here that they want to see changed, or is everybody okay with the language that's in here? So no, I think we sent this out a couple of days ago, so I just want to check in and see what people's opinions are.
I did find 2 typos.
Yeah, that would be my only feedback, is that any grammatical errors, but the spirit of it is something I agree with wholeheartedly.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to do is to send this through our comms department with Greg, and then have their stamp on it as well, and then we go through the motion of sending it up and over to the state, but we get their seal of approval on it. Then we can chat either at the working session or electronically about moving it, if that's okay.
What is the process for passing this over to the legislature and getting it in front of the legislators?
I would suggest that we had a situation this week where on the basis of the hate crime bill that was heard, very, very specific bill was heard, and our chair testified specifically to that bill. So I would, if we do approve this as a commission, then I would hope that either our chair, if he was available, could testify. The great thing is we can either do it in person or virtually. Or maybe we request, I know that the city does have a lobbyist who perhaps could present us. So one way or the other to get it before. Does that clarify?
So just to reiterate, which I fully support, I just want to reiterate what we're talking about. We as a commission want to pass this as our statement for the commission. And we also want to forward it to the city commission for their endorsement and approval. Is that correct?
I would put that in the motion. Yeah.
Just checking.
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry. To Rin's point about, she had a couple of points about enforcement. That brings it back to the police department having any kind of position on these issues as well, since it will fall in their hands. I just sort of want to put it out there, is if we can bring them in on this or get some kind of statement from them, somehow that would be also helpful. I think it would be powerful to have something from them.
I think that Ahmed, myself, Dr. Hogan can work with.
If I can make a comment, Chair. If I'm hearing correct, for the letter to be sent, I don't think you need an approval from the City Commission. You can go ahead and send it. It's a Human Rights Commission.
But also, we would like to have it be forwarded to the city commission for their endorsement. We can do two things, two-step process, but it would be very helpful if the city commission would also back this and forward it. If I'm
it's okay with
understanding
folks,
correctly.
yes, and I would like to actually bring this to the working session so that we can iron out the process, and have Greg involved with it as well. So I guess as of right now, I guess would like it to be known that we agree with this messaging, and then bring it to the working session to approve it at that point if it's something we want to move forward with, since we don't have the motion in writing in front of us to agree on. Is that okay, or do you want to make a motion right now?
I think we have a date of February 25th, right? That when the crossover comes?
I mean, I could modify if my motion got too complicated, I could modify the motion to at least as a body, whether or not we approve of this statement or not. And I was going to mention the second reason why I think it's really important we take a strong stand is because we have a community that's under attack right now. And I would also add that this is our way of standing in solidarity with that community, that we do not stand for this kind of targeting of our community. So it's twofold. It's to oppose the legislation and to provide support. So I would ask approval of the motion of this statement as a body.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so any further discussion on that particular item? Okay, so
Say that again.
sorry?
Say that again.
Further discussion on that particular item, just the motion that we approve of the messaging of this.
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion passes. I would like to, is it okay if we move on?
Yes, can I do one other quick
Mr.
update?
Chairman, if I could just really quickly interject, I'm your
Yes, please.
liaison to the City Commission. At a minimum, I would suggest we immediately get this information to Mike Redlinger, the city administrator.
Sure.
Who gives us an update at our legislative topics on Monday, at Tuesday's meeting with President's Day on Monday. And also make sure I have a copy of it so that if nothing else, I can acknowledge it in liaison reports and disseminate it.
Thank you.
I agree, this is critical information. Every day counts.
Okay, we can do that.
So, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. This is an urgent matter, and it requires urgent act. So I believe in sending out letters, but I also believe in physical presence. If this is that important, I think we have to put our weight behind it.
Sure.
Not
Thank you.
just send out letter to Bismarck or whatever. We can show physical presence too.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna, so number 10, staff updates. Wanted to make two updates. We want to acknowledge that one of our commission members, Hamida, is currently taking a leave of absence and is at the state level right now. We just want to congratulate her and to say that we really appreciate the work that she does and is welcome back here once the legislative session is over. And we're just really proud that another commission member is doing something of that magnitude. And then that we are looking at expanding the executive committee to a third person, and we'll bring that to the working session when that happens in a couple of weeks. I don't think, does anybody else have updates from the staff area? Okay.
I just wanted to answer your question, if that's all right, Ms. Dazenrad. You had a question about law enforcement and who makes the decision on whether it goes to the city attorney or whether it goes to the state's attorney. We can just cover that. Yes, the line level officer makes that decision when they're entering it in, because they have to enter the exact code, and whether it's a city ordinance code or the state code. Now, historically, the majority would go to the city when it comes to a harassment charge. And the exception on when a harassment charge, especially if it's a B misdemeanor type offense, the only reason that would go to the state's attorney's office is if there are additional charges going on based off of that incident that were state charges as well. We don't want to divide the case into two court systems. So if they were going to be charged with harassment and that was a B misdemeanor and another A misdemeanor or a felony level offense, we would then choose the state harassment charge so that the entire case goes to the same location. But otherwise, if it was just one offense at that one time and it was the B misdemeanor, we would historically keep all of those to the city attorney. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. We have two more items to get through before we're done. I believe for announcements, Barry?
Well, I just want to do a really quick update. House Bill 1537 is the bias or hate crime bill also that was heard in the Judiciary Committee this past week. It's coming out of committee. I'm not sure what shape it's coming in. It's still alive, but it is, this bill would create training for peace officers. It would allow for mandate data collection on hate crimes when they occur around the state. The other part that was part of the original bill, which would be enhanced penalties if a hate crime occurred, was stripped out in committee, so that's no longer present. But my encouragement, we as a commission did support this bill as well. And my request is that everybody call their House members today and request that they support 1537 so that it can be passed and turned over to the Senate. If they defeat it, it's dead for the session. So we really need to get a pass vote in the House. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we still do want to make sure that we get public comment in. So the next item is public comment. Those who wish to address the Human Rights Commission must use a sign-in sheet. Speakers must state their name and will be limited to 2 minutes. Comments should not contain profanity or personal attacks. Do we have individual signed up?
Yep, we have one person, Reverend Karen.
Okay. I think it's actually 2.5. Is it 2.5?
Yeah.
2.5 minutes, please. That's what we have right now. Oh, the timer's already been put up there. Okay, thank you.
No?
Can you hear me over?
Yes.
Hello, good to see you again. My name is Reverend Karen Van Fossen. I live here in Fargo. I'm with Authentic Ministry. And I want to thank you very much for your support today and beyond for our LGBTQ, particularly trans community in Fargo. I also am here again to urge you to continue to follow through on your deep concerns that you articulated in the fall about the shooting of Shane Netterville by a Fargo police officer last summer. As I've listened today, I've witnessed much good motion, much good movement, and many ways that this body understands that the work of the Human Rights Commission and the work of the Police Oversight Board is entwined. And so I see no reason that this body cannot continue to take up the matter of Shane Netterville's human rights, as well as the human rights of his family. The community continues to call for an independent investigation and continues to beg you to get behind that again, as you did in the fall. The original investigation by BCI has some factual and and personal errors, we believe. So there are a number of concerns that the community holds. One is that Shane certainly had a right not to be shot. That was a human right. He also had the right for emergency medical services to be called immediately. Instead, it was more than 5 minutes before EMS was called. That could have saved his life, even if the shooting could in some world be understood as justified. I don't live in that world, but even so, EMS was not called for more than 5 minutes. And the family was not notified for many, many hours, which I consider a violation of their human rights to understand what has befallen their loved one. So I hope you will continue to listen to us. We will continue to show up. Thank you for those who came and spoke with us after the last meeting. And I hope you will take this up. We will be here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone present who wants to speak but not yet signed up? 2.5 minutes, please.
I'm Christopher Cohn. I'm a resident of Fargo. So I did by myself. I put in a complaint to the Department of Justice, and 3 times, and 3 times it was returned as insufficient evidence for federal crime. So if you plan to put in a complaint yourself as a board, I think you should speak to a civil rights attorney first to find out what evidence you need, because I gave them every bit of evidence that there was, including the videotapes, what was I going to say? And find out what the federal crime is. I think it's a certain title under the Constitution, having to do with excessive force. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other business? Hearing none, this meeting of the Human Rights Commission stands adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 16th, 2023 at noon. Thank you, folks.